What's going on, world? Coming at you guys again. We got another quick video. Nolan Wales. Let's talk about it. So I feel like we're getting closer and closer to finding out what actually happened to Nolan Wales. My newest conspiracy and theory on what actually happened, I don't think this is race-based. I don't think it's racism. I don't even think this was a manner in which foul play or violence actually ensued. What I think happened to Nolan Wales, I think Nolan Wales overdosed on alcohol. Maybe some other pills, but we've already seen statements from the interviewee by Officer Tatum that everybody was drinking, and then another individual who claimed to be one of Nolan Wales' friends said that he was inebriated and slurring his words. What I think happened, Nolan Wales was drinking. Apparently they go out there all the time. He got so fucked up that he developed alcohol poisoning. You mix that with being out there all day and in the sun, the guy died from alcohol poisoning. He probably threw up on the boat, trying to get it out of his system, probably went into cardiac arrest. That was it. There was nothing wrong with the boat. That's why they canceled the tow. But they utilized the call as a diversionary tactic to come up with some type of a strategy and narrative and alibi as to a sequence of events. They got back to the bayou. The judge and the doctor were there to do an examination, an assessment of Nolan Wales. They passed his body off to somebody else. That's that 14-minute span. They put him in the water in a secure location. They took the boat out. They took the boat to, I believe, the judge's house. They wiped it down, cleaned it down as best as possible to get all traces of DNA off that boat. They took Nolan Wales back out to that island in that morning. After, they called the mother and they called the Coast Guard. The biggest issue that's happening right now, and the reason why nobody saw what happened to Nolan Wales is because I believe all this happened. It's a conspiracy. I'm not necessarily determined to be sure of it being factual. But what I think happened is the reason why nobody saw Nolan Wales is because Nolan Wales got on the boat with his friends. And they're all covering up for each other. Everybody's covering up for each other. And the reason why they're covering up for each other is because they brought the alcohol with them to the island. They got the alcohol from their parents. So when we talk about the death of Nolan Wales, if he literally died from alcohol poisoning that these kids got from their parents, and their parents were aware that they were taking alcohol out there using their boat to get to the island, now we're looking at murder charges or negligence and contribution of alcoholism to a minor. It's just not the kids. Now it's the parents and anybody else that's involved. Because if that judge is involved, is that doctor is involved, and anybody else within the process of the criminal justice system is involved in trying to cover this shit up. I mean, this will be an international thing. Like BBC News will be covering this shit. America's already in a tight spot right now when it comes to our relationships internationally. This is, if this comes down to the fact that we have judges and doctors and individuals who are ingrained within the criminal justice system trying to cover up an accidental overdose because parents gave their kids alcohol on the parents' boat to go out to this island, which apparently they do all the time. And according to the Cajun Coast Guard person that was interviewed, he said, well, there's common practice out there and nobody IDs out there. So this is a common occurrence. So this is probably not the first time that Nolan Wales and his friends have went out to the island drinking alcohol. Again, they weren't 21. So the reality situation is they probably have a habit of going out there drinking under the age. And, maybe Nolan Wells just had one too many. In conjunction with the son, he dehydrated and fell victim to alcohol poisoning. They tried to bring him back as quickly as they possibly could when they were at 4:30. That 4 o'clock, 4:30 timeline, Nolan Wells at 4 o'clock, 4:30 could have started convulsing or losing consciousness. And so they said, fuck, we got to get out of here. We got to go. And they beat feet back, and they realized and recognized that he wasn't going to make it. So they had to get their story straight. So they made a phone call. Phone call led to one person, to another person, to another person that told them they needed to contact somebody to make it look like they were having boat issues. Because now they would have a reason to stop there and, do an assessment when they got back to the bayou, and then take Nolan's body and put him in the water. Because, having him in the water, you may see some type of bloating, you may see some type of degrading and, elimination of evidence, etc., etc. It's a whole thing, man. And honestly, I think this is what happened. Again, it's not definitive. This is still conspiracy. But if we were to look at everything and all the information that's been given to us, and look at it in a factor where it's everybody's telling the truth, with a slight grain of salt, this is the most probable situation. And the cover-up is because they're kids, and the kids are trying to also cover up for the parents and the people that's involved. Again, kids didn't go to the store. I don't believe the kids went to the store and bought alcohol. Somebody that was 21 years older got them the alcohol. And, the question is somebody needs to go talk to Nolan Wells' father and mother and ask them, is this the first time Nolan Wells has been out to that island? And has there been any other situations to where Nolan Wells has been known to consume alcohol and with his friends? Because if that's the case, then we have a definitive pattern and a clear indication of the possibility that all the kids are telling the truth. He was like a brother to me. He was my best friend, except for that we left him behind shit, or he refused not to get on the boat. Everything else likely checks out. And this could literally just be not an accidental drowning, but an accidental overdose. And because minors were drinking alcohol illegally and boating illegally, and if the parents were aware that they were boating and drinking illegally as minors under the age, drinking alcohol illegally, now the parents are going to be held reliable. So, this is probably one of the reasons why Ben Crump got involved, because now it's not looking at just a criminal conduct. Now it's looking at negligence, to where the parents are going to be sued for contributing to the delinquency of a minor, to contributing to the consumption of alcohol beverages to an underage minor, as well as the death of a minor, based off of the history that these kids possibly have done this before, about being on a boat and drinking alcohol, being underage, drinking alcohol, boating with alcohol, and the whole nine. So, again, this is where my brain is. This is where my thought process is. And this is a possible reality. It's not definitive. This is still conspiracy. But, somebody should reach out to Nolan Wells' mother and Nolan Wells' father. If you know them, don't reach out to them in a aggressive or violent manner. If you already know them, then maybe we can see Nolan Wells' mother or father make a public statement to say that, yes, my son has been known to consume alcohol from time to time. Yes, my son has been known to go out to Horn Island with his friends from time to time. And yes, it is known that our son has consumed alcohol while out at the island with his friends from time to time. Because now we're looking at a situation to where it really was an accident. But the fact of the matter, like I said before, the more time that they take and they wait to try to cover this shit up, the worse off it's going to be for everybody. And again, this is not definitive. This is a theory. This is conspiracy.